Elsewhere, the United Nations has condemned Israel's unlawful detention of Palestinians. According to the UN Human Rights Office spokesperson, it's worrying that Israel is taking Palestinians under administrative detention without trial. Ravina Sham-dasani added that the detainees are often transferred to prisons inside Israel in violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. She called for an end to detentions and the release of the detained Palestinians. Sham-dasani also indicated that the number of detained Palestinians has doubled since 2014. The administrative detention practice exercised by Israel has been repeatedly condemned by the United Nations. Professor of Al-Azhar University, Muhammad Abu Saada, joins us now from Gaza with more on that story. Professor, welcome to the program. Apart from the issue of administrative detention, all Palestinians are suffering from dire and inhumane conditions in Israeli prisons. Talk to us about that issue and also tell us why this illegal Israeli policy is not being properly addressed in the international arena.
Well, that is very important to begin with. Let me just give a few information about Palestinian prisoners inside Israeli jails and prisons. Until this moment, there are right now about 7,000 Palestinians inside Israeli jails and prisons. Since 1967, Israel has jailed almost 1 million Palestinians served time inside Israeli jails. And most of those Palestinians were received ill treatment from the Israeli prison authorities, and many Palestinians have died as a result of this ill treatment from Israeli prison authorities. And the last one just died yesterday when a Palestinian ex-prisoner died yesterday as a result of Israeli ill treatment against Palestinian prisoners. Now, with regard to administrative detention, these laws goes back to the British mandate over Palestine during the 1930s, when the British authorities used this as a policy of detaining Palestinian fighters or Palestinian revolutionaries against British mandate and British occupation of Palestine. And Israeli laws right now goes back to this period. Many Palestinians have detained based on these laws, which are in violation of international law, in violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. And the last incident happened just a week ago when the Israeli occupation forces arrested a Palestinian member of the PLC, Khalid Jarrar, who was arrested and sentenced to 4 months in jail on administrative detention.
In your view, sir, what has to happen to change this illegal Israeli policy, the status quo? Would you believe maybe the accession of the Palestinians to the ICC could also be a step in the right direction to halt all these Israeli violations against the Palestinians?
It's also very important to mention that the Palestinians might have a good case in the ICC and in the international institutions to stop Israeli aggression against the Palestinians and Israeli ill treatment to Palestinian prisoners. As we stated just right now, this Israeli ill treatment of Palestinian prisoners is in violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949, and that, in my opinion, amounts to war crimes which were stated in Article number 8 of the Rome Convention of 1998, which established the International Criminal Court. I believe if had the Palestinians decides to go to the ICC, they might have a good case facing Israel to stop its ill treatment of Palestinian prisoners and administrative detention also of Palestinians. I believe that these are amounted to war crimes according to international conventions, and definitely the Palestinians might have a good case and a successful case against Israeli aggressive measures against the Palestinians who are suffering from 48 years of Israeli occupation in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem.
And the Israelis have always been in defiance of those international conventions up until now.
Definitely. Israel for almost 48 years have neglected international law and international convention. And let me just remind our viewers here is that when Israel occupied the Palestinian territories in June of 1967, Israel applied international law to the Palestinian occupied territories. But a month after that, Israel decided that international law and the Fourth Geneva Convention doesn't apply to the Palestinian occupied territories, on the basis that when Israel occupied these territories, they were occupied from Arab countries and not from the Palestinians. But until this moment, the international community deals with the Palestinian occupied territories as unoccupied territories, and international law and the Fourth Geneva Convention applies to these Palestinian territories as unoccupied territories. So Israel can say whatever it wants, but and it can deny and basically deal with the Palestinian in a very aggressive way. But the international system, international conventions are on the side of the Palestinians.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Machaimar Abu Sada, joining us from Gaza.